Travis Bickle comes back to haunt Robert De Niro again. Someday a real rain will come and wash all the scum off the streets. What did Robert De Niro think when he heard the news that a loser on the fringe shot President Trump? Did he think, good, I'm glad someone did? Did he pause and contemplate the near death of a former president? Did he, like so many others on the left, wish the shooter had better aim? It didn't matter to Thomas Matthew Crooks whether the target was Joe Biden or Donald Trump. He probably never watched Taxi Driver, and the only thing he knows about Robert De Niro are the anti-Trump memes that flood the MAGA zone, making fun of the aging actor. Everybody sees those.
After what he did last night at the Tonys, this is where Robert goes.
No, all that mattered to him was that people remembered his name. But still, you have to wonder, in the moments immediately following the shooting, what De Niro must have thought, considering he once played Travis Bickle in Taxi Driver, a guy a lot like Crooks. A lonely, invisible man who would be written off as an incel today, the very definition. Not many people go to the trouble of assassination attempts of political figures. Thomas Matthew Crooks now joins that very short list. What made the Trump assassination attempt so jarring was that we all watched it on live television. We saw something that should have shocked us all out of our partisan stupor. It should have meant the end of our cold civil war fought mostly on Twitter for control of the media narrative. But it was a test, and I'm afraid we failed. We moved on too quickly. We didn't even talk about what it meant for our national unity. With Reagan, it was big news. Any political assassination was. But what's happened to us now? The media machine was back to feeding the hungry beast of rage against this one man. It was a grim reminder that we're not only living Orwell's 1984, but we're living Sidney Lumet's network too. When they were done with Howard Beale, they were done.
Of the airways, Howard Beale.
Network news anchorman on the UBS Network News Show, known to millions as the Mad Prophet of the airwaves, was shot to death tonight in a fusillade of automatic rifle fire just as he began this evening's broadcast.
Taxi Driver is one of the greatest films ever made. There is no question about that. Hollywood doesn't make movies like that anymore. They can't. There is no room for them. Hollywood is so closely married to the Democratic Party that the Obamas have a deal with Netflix. George Clooney was one of the most influential people in pushing Joe Biden aside to install the younger woman of color, Kamala Harris. That means everything is not only politics, but politics that supports one political party, a party that has control of almost everything, a party that must always project a utopian vision for society, a woke-topia. Orwell knew. Patty Chayefsky knew.
We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value. So, I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!
So much of what we watch now has been scrubbed clean of any perceived offense against any one group. The result is bland homogenization of art. Everything looks exactly the same. Types of people represent different groups so as not to leave one marginalized person behind. It has a disorienting effect because we're never sure what we're watching or where we are in time. History has been erased and modulated to be less offensive, easier to accept, not confrontational. Is this a story or is it propaganda? Paul Schrader, Martin Scorsese, and so many of the best filmmakers of the 1970s were part of the counterculture revolution. It was a renaissance of creativity born out of a society rooted in traditional religion. All of these years later, the boomers are preparing to go gently into that good night. They don't want to move fast and break things. They want to make sure their time on the planet was useful. So they've tinkered with their utopian diorama via Hollywood. Have we achieved perfection? Is everyone now equal? One more step to go, the first female of color president.
And you know, we have to stay woke. Like, everybody needs to be woke. And you can talk about if you're the wokest or woker, but just stay more woke than less woke.
What stands in their way? The guy who just got shot 3 weeks ago.
We need you back in office, man. Let's hit this dance. Pretty good, huh? Where's the camera at? Oh.
Whatever Hollywood has become, it has fused with the government, leaving very little room for dissent or subversive thought. That's why a Taxi Driver could not be made today. It isn't just that Taxi Driver is full of scenes that would be considered overtly racist. Black men are depicted as thugs and gangsters. The film is filled with politically incorrect slurs. Jodie Foster plays a 12-year-old prostitute who dresses provocatively and sleeps with her pimp, played by Harvey Keitel. One scene is disturbing and would be too upsetting for today's audiences. Travis Bickle shoots an armed robber in a liquor store, but it's after Travis leaves that it gets really bad as the shopkeeper begins hitting the limp dead body with a baseball bat. And if you talk about those scenes as being essential to the film, you'll be called a racist. Somehow it always gets back to nervous white people, afraid of being called out and losing everything. But it's also that Taxi Driver is such a beautiful reveal of the hypocrisy of the left. Paul Schrader or Martin Scorsese wouldn't see it that way, but looking back on the film from the lens of today, we see what Travis calls filth and scum all around him. Nothing is solved, and in fact, it's not even seen.
All the animals come out at night. Whores, skunk pussies, buggers, queens, fairies, dopers, junkies. Sick, venal. Someday a real rain will come and wash all this scum off the streets. I go all over. I take people to the Bronx, Brooklyn. I take them to Harlem. I don't care. Don't make no difference to me. It does to some. Some won't even take spooks. Don't make no difference to me.
Only Travis sees what life in New York is really like. Taxi Driver's moral compass points in the right direction. Travis Bickle is an early prototype for the exact kind of shooter that tried to take out Donald Trump. He's a loner, addicted to porn, a nobody who thinks getting a gun and doing something big will make him a somebody. It doesn't play out as Travis wants it to. He wants to assassinate presidential candidate Palantine. He wants to be a bad guy to get revenge, not just on the woman who spurned him, but on all of society. Palantine was a politician, a Democrat by the looks of it, and politicians sent Travis Bickle to Vietnam. Politicians who exist in another world, far away from the reality of the streets of New York City. Scorsese contrasts this with the idealized world of Betsy, played by Sybil Shepherd. Palantine's office and Betsy's world are one cool remove from what Travis sees. That's probably why she catches his eye.
I first saw her at Palantine Campaign Headquarters at 63rd and Broadway. She was wearing a white dress. She appeared like an angel out of this filthy mess. She is alone. They cannot touch her. Hi.
But Travis doesn't belong in that world, though he tries for a time. He takes her on a date, which is awkward and strange. She seems drawn to him the way good girls were drawn to dark and dangerous men back then. Think the Manson family. He takes her to the movies, but Travis doesn't live the way normal people do, so he takes her to a porn flick. That freaks her out, and her walk on the wild side is over.
You know, I didn't know that you'd feel that way about this movie. I don't know much about movies, but if I had known...
Is the only kind of movies you go to?
Well, yeah, I mean, I come and this is not so bad.
Taking me to a place like this is about as exciting to me as saying, let's fuck.
There are other places I can take you. Plenty of other movies I can take you to. I don't know much about them, but I can take you to other places.
Which is different.
Wait a second.
I have to go.
No.
I gotta go now.
Wait a second. I want to talk to you.
Look,
Don't just
I have to go.
Wait a second.
Taxi?
Can I talk to you at least? I mean, won't you at least talk to me? I didn't know you... Look, won't you take the record?
I've already got it.
Today, Hollywood is Palatine's office. It's a world away from the reality of everyday life, and they somehow believe they can solve problems for the rest of us. Today, Travis Bickle would get no sympathy from viewers. He would be judged and placed in a specific category in the unseen world. Taxi Driver is a riveting film from the first second. We're fascinated by this guy, not just because his performance is one of the best ever by an actor, but because we wonder what he will do next. He seems pulled in two different directions, good and evil. That's textbook Schrader, of course, but we didn't necessarily know that back then. Travis practices becoming a badass. He buys a stockpile of weapons, arms himself, and prepares for battle. Against whom or what, he doesn't know yet. He just knows that he's done being a lonely, awkward nobody, and it's time to take steps to remedy that. So he shaves his head into a mohawk, probably would be considered cultural appropriation today, and prepares to assassinate Palantine. But he's already alerted the Secret Service thanks to a bizarre conversation with one of them earlier in the film. Once he's spotted, they chase him off, but they lose sight of him. It's hard not to see shades of the failed Trump assassination here, as Crooks was spotted by the Secret Service long before he humped up the roof of a barn and tried to kill Trump. Had Travis shot Palantine, in his mind, Betsy would have seen him and regretted dumping him. Or maybe he just wanted to wipe the real scum off the streets. Not the lowlifes, but the liars who promised everything and delivered nothing. Or maybe he just wanted to commit suicide, like Crooks and so many others. Go out in a blaze of glory so we all remember their names. Travis decides that he can't touch someone like Betsy, but he can save little Iris, the 12-year-old prostitute played by Jodie Foster. He goes on a murder rampage, first killing Sport, the pimp, then rousting out all the pedophiles and enablers.
You crazy son of a bitch! Fucking son of a bitch, you! I'll kill 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 you! I'll fucking kill you! You crazy son of a bitch! I'll kill you!
They don't kill Travis at the end, though he imagines killing himself. Next comes the somewhat controversial part of the film, a happy ending of sorts. The press turns Travis into a hero. Iris is sent home, and her parents are so grateful to Travis. Even Betsy notices and is impressed. Travis goes on to live a normal life. The question is, did that really happen, or was it fantasy? We already know Travis has invented a fantasy life he sells his parents, pretending to be dating Betsy. Who knows? Filmmakers did not have the job of patching the blind spots or telling us what to think back then. They just told the story and scratched off layers of pretense to get to the truth. I remember the John Hinkley shooting of Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan was 2 months into his presidency when John Hinkley Jr. drew a $29 handgun outside the Washington Hilton Hotel on March 30th, 1981.
just as I remember the debate in the wake of it as to whether the film Taxi Driver, its director Martin Scorsese, its writer Paul Schrader, or its star Robert De Niro, should feel any guilt for having influenced a susceptible crazy person to go to such extreme lengths. Hinkley famously obsessed on Jodie Foster, so much so that Paul Schrader received a letter from Hinkley that begged for a meeting with Foster but also revealed how right Schrader had gotten him specifically. "Do you know me?" he said. But he wasn't the only one. There were taxi driver kids, lost men who slipped through the cracks and found their way to Travis Bickle as he wrestled with good and evil. Hinkley clearly missed the point and headed in the opposite direction, choosing the path of evil rather than the path of good. When the FBI visited Schrader, he lied about the Hinkley letter. He didn't want to be rousted by the FBI, but I also think he was running from the idea that the movie had anything whatsoever to do with the attempted assassination of a president. Scorsese made a follow-up of sorts several years after the Hinkley shooting called The King of Comedy, with another brilliant performance by Robert De Niro. This time he was Rupert Pupkin, the flip side of Travis Bickle. He was a sad sack loner who wanted to be a comedian and be invited on the Jerry Langford show.
Talk about you. Talk about me, as a matter of fact.
Well, he must have said something about me.
He didn't say anything about you. What's he going to say about you after what you did in the car last night? I couldn't believe it.
You must be really loving this, Rupert, huh?
You were schmucko supremo last night.
Hold on a minute. I'm the schmuck. Me. You're wrong,
really
buddy.
crazy.
You're very wrong.
Yeah.
Because if I hadn't gotten in that car last night, you never even had the chance to talk to Jerry. Keep that in mind, okay?
What?
Yes.
Listen, I don't want to be cruel, but really, we're in front of Jerry's building. God forbid he should see me with you, because Jerry and I have a real relationship going. You know what I mean? No fantasy world. You know what I'm talking about?
The King of Comedy nods to Taxi Driver, but it heads in the direction of celebrity stalkers, dumping it all on Hinkley's lap for his obsession with Foster. But it nods to Travis Bickle too in its own way, as Pupkin envisions himself as part of Jerry's world, a world he will never be able to access. Pupkin envisions himself becoming a somebody, better king for a day than schmuck for a lifetime. He also turns to violence out of desperation, although it's funnier than Taxi Driver, needless to say. For one thing, the gun isn't loaded. For another, Jerry Langford is held hostage by a crazed fan, Sandra Bernhardt. Some of the best scenes in this film are those that De Niro and Bernhardt reportedly improvised. We don't find out until the very end that he might have been talking to a mother that was no longer alive, a nod to Psycho, perhaps.
So let's get on with the show, the best of Rupert Pupkin. Jerry, I've sketched out this little outline in order to save you a little bit of time, okay? It's a little introduction. So close your eyes and imagine it's exactly 6 o'clock. You're standing in the wings and we hear Lou Brown and the orchestra strike up your theme song.
And now, from New York, it's the Jerry Langford Show with Jerry's guests, Richard Pryor, Ben Gazzara, Elizabeth Ashley, Carol Burnett, and the comedy find of the year, making his television debut, Rupert Pupkin, the new king of comedy.
Rupert! Are you crazy?
Say
What's
hello
the matter
to
with you?
Jerry.
Ah, people
Mom.
are sleeping. Lower it. What's the matter with you?
Mom!
Take it easy. Lower it.
I'm not going to lower it. I have to do this now.
I don't mind you playing it, but lower it.
By the time we see Rupert's full monologue, it's not half bad. And just as with Travis, we can't help but think he could have been somebody.
A household word. Officials estimate that Rupert Pupkin's performance has been viewed by a record 87 million American households.
Rupert Pupkin, the kidnapping king of comedy, was sentenced today to 6 years imprisonment at the government's minimum security facility in Allenwood, Pennsylvania, for his part in the abduction of...
Scorsese gives us another would-be fantasy ending when Rupert Pupkin envisions himself becoming a bestseller, and now worthy in his own right to appear on talk shows. Probably it's all in his head, but as with Taxi Driver, we never really know for sure. Thomas Matthew Crooks was researching Lee Harvey Oswald. Maybe he knew he was going to kill himself, so why not do something big, something no one would ever forget? He even looked up how far Oswald was from Kennedy at the time of the shooting, so he could mimic the distance. I still wonder if Robert De Niro took a breath and thought about how much violence and hate he directed at Trump for all those years, and if he wondered, even just for a minute, whether he had anything to do with it.
I'm very, very concerned about what's going on in this country with
someone like Trump. You look at other dictators, they're very much like him. You don't believe it's happening, but it's happening. Hitler, Mussolini, others that I can't even name. It's scary. I'm sorry. It's a dire situation as far as I'm concerned.
I'm going to say one thing. Trump.
The guy's a monster. He is beyond wrong. It's almost like he wants to do the most horrible things that he can think of in order to get a rise out of us. I don't know what it is, but he's been doing it, and it's scary. I mean, he's so blatantly stupid. He's a punk. He's a dog. He's a pig. He's a con, a bullshit artist, a mutt who doesn't know what he's talking about, doesn't do his homework, doesn't care, thinks he's gaming society, doesn't pay his taxes. He's an idiot. Colin Powell said it best. He's a national disaster. He's an embarrassment to this country. It makes me so angry that this country has gotten to this point, that this fool, this bozo, has wound up where he has. He talks how he wants to punch people in the face. Well, I'd like to punch him in the face.
A culture so fragile as ours could not handle a taxi driver today, not the reality of it. The underlying message would have to be the same thing it always is now. We are good people doing good things in Hollywood, and every film will right the wrongs of society. Betsy and her boss Palantine would love the movies of today, but almost no one else does. They're boring because they're not the truth. It seems as though Hollywood has become so disconnected from the truth. The only kind of drama we can get anymore is real life. Like the Trump assassination. Like the presidential election. Like the videos we see on TikTok and YouTube.
See something that said, take a look at what happened here.
Oh, wow. Look, I'm Donald Trump. I think I'm so cool because I got shot. What a loser. Are people seriously pretending that looks cool? He did a photo op because he heard a loud noise? Loser! Ugh, who's impressed with this guy? America will never be defeated! USA! 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 Wow, now he's juggling when he go to magic camp. Who is this supposed to impress? Thank you. As if we're supposed to be intimidated by this. Oh my god. Oh, this just in. Joe Biden just bravely and heroically dropped out of the race with an extremely courageous tweet. Whoa, that's the bravest and most patriotic thing I've ever heard of. Truly an American hero. Can you imagine anything more impressive? What a legacy.
If Hollywood wants to rock our world again, it will have to do a lot better than they've been doing. They have decided that they can wall themselves off and say to the rest of the country who supported Trump, "You are not welcome here because he is not welcome here." That is not something Hollywood can survive.
Hi.
Taxi Driver might have inspired Hinkley to misinterpret the movie and shoot the president, but it inspired a generation of filmmakers who should be so lucky ever to make a movie that good. And he provided a safe space for lonely losers to see themselves as heroes. As for Robert De Niro, he gifted the world with some of the most memorable characters in film history. That he, like so much of Hollywood now, has been reduced to Trump hater, is one of the signs that the empire is in collapse. The boomers are on their way out, and it's long past time to turn the page.